What is up, players? Warboss Tap in this mug. Welcome to day 9 of my summer painting challenge. Here we are looking at the Mark III squads of Space Marines. It's 20 guys, 2 squads of 10. 2 of those guys are sergeants with a plasma pistol, and 2 of those guys are Vox operators. So they've got a little bit of a different kit to them, but mostly all of this entire project can be painted in very similar fashion. I'm going to show you how I'm doing it right now. This is a dry brush. It's almost like a stipple brush, but it's from the Army Painter range Drybrush Set, and I'll put a link below in the description if you want to check it out. I'm using Corvus Black, which is a darker than Mechanica Standard Gray, but lighter than Abaddon Black, Black Gray, and it's perfect to use as a highlight dry brushed onto your any kind of black armored army. For example, Raven Guard, Black Templar, or in this case, the Iron Hands. I'm also showing you a sneak peek into the studio and how I do batch painting. I get all of the models I'm going to be working on and I just throw them haphazardly on the center of my painting area. This keeps them in the forefront of my mind, keeps me aware of how much I still have left to do and how far I've progressed. Then, as I finish one step, okay, in this case, it's just one step. Later on, I'm going to start adding steps together so that I don't feel like I have to micromanage and stop every couple of seconds. But generally, you knock one thing out. In this case, the Corvus Black highlight. Trying to be zenithal, but really just getting it almost everywhere. And as soon as I'm done with it, as soon as I've reached a point where I can say, okay, he's ready to be set aside while I work on the next one, then you just line them up in ranks. You're building an army, right? So let's have the disorganized, help needed, poor unfortunate guys on the right, and then neat orderly ranks on the left to indicate that they have gotten the Warboss Tate treatment. Or whoever you are. You want them to get the blank treatment of getting painted correctly and saving time on brushes and supplies and paints. All of that is great. So continuing to grind, I'm working on the highlights. I'm trying to go from an up to down motion. And as you can see, as we get closer to the end, I'm having to dip the paintbrush back into the pot and then thin it down on my wet palette and then wipe away most of it on my napkin. It's getting a little confusing and a little tedious at this point, so I do make a couple of mistakes where it will look like there is too much silver on certain areas. Now we're just reaching the end of our batch, and you can see they're all ordered nice and neat. I can see them all in front of me. If there's any guys that have mistakes that I need to go back and fix, now's the time to do it. I do have a paper towel next to me, very important if you're working on a dry brush, but eventually even I ditch the paper towel and just use the palm of my hand to dry brush the paint off. There you can see my secret ingredient, my secret tools. I'm going to put a link below in the description and you can pick one up for yourself. I love this dry brushing set. I actually got a comparable set of makeup brushes, which work just as well, surprisingly, but the Army Painter Master Dry Brush set is specifically meant for miniatures. So they're really good at holding the paint and spreading it out. And now what I've done is I've gotten some lead belcher, and I'm dry brushing this on top of the Corvus Gray to show you just how great it's gonna look once you have this metallic sheen under the black. Like, I never would have thought, it took me a good amount of time last night combing through all of the how to paint Iron Hands videos they have on YouTube, and I found some really great ones explaining this technique of the tarnished silver. Now, unfortunately, a lot of great tutorials that I found require an airbrush because you really need to spray on some Drukai Violet and some like Orc Skin Green, and because I don't work with an airbrush usually, especially when I'm at my in-laws' place, I have to find a way of creating the same effect using brushes. So using a dry brush to give the impression of metallic armor, silver metallic armor underneath the black, it's brilliant. Other ways I've found people do it is they actually prime the model in lead belcher and then prime it again in like a very light gold and then start putting the color on. And that to me seems a little counterintuitive. Maybe I need to try it to see how it works for myself. But I found just, you know what, spray prime these guys in black because they're a majority of black for their armor scheme anyways, and then do the silver bits like the rim for the shoulder pad, the weapons, and all of the different little gilded edgings you can find, and then go back and dry brush it with this silver. But doing it now as the like second step after the Corvus black, I really see how it gives the impression of tarnished silver. It's just beautiful. So my plan here was I wanted to just show you guys how I was going to completely paint one of these. So after working on getting every model up to this point, I wanted to show you 20 models with the Iron Hands armor, and then I just take one and I build it up as a test model. So that's what we're going to be seeing. A funny story, if you are interested in Iron Hands Space Marines, the chapter or the Legion at this point, because this is during the Horus Heresy, I found an interesting piece of fiction or character for the Iron Hands that said they were actually not as like utilitarian and plain as say like the Iron Warriors. They actually had more like artistry and more ornamentation to their armor. A lot of that they felt was kind of excised from their character and their personality once they lost their Primarch Ferrus Manus. But it's interesting to see that even Ferrus Manus wasn't all about, you know, cutting away the flesh is weak, and replace it with strong iron. He was always into using iron as a tool, and it's interesting to see that like before he died, he was all about ornamentation and looking good, and not only being utilitarian and getting the job done, but also having a little bit of fanciness to everything. And working on the final Space Marine here. So happy I'm at this point with these guys. This is really a good starting point for me. Like I can pick this up and work on it. I feel like the days are just gonna fly by really quickly, and then I can get done with this and move on to the Justaerin Terminators or the Iron Father. And that'll be the end of my project for the month. I can actually start on new projects. I'm taking my Drukai Violet now and I'm adding it selectively, starting with areas that look like they're about halfway down the armor. So I wanted the light to hit the metal or hit the miniature, and I wanted you to see that purple armor on like the lower part of whatever armor plate you're looking at, so that it wouldn't be hitting the light near the top. But then as I went, I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna cover most areas, because if it's gonna be shining from any angle, you're gonna see it bouncing off of that silver anyways. It just turned out to work better for me. It's funny because black with silver trim is such an easy color scheme to wrap your head around, but then when you're actually working on it, then that's when you can find different ways to bump up the artistry while still keeping a good time on your project. It's not going to be like you're painting Emperor's Children, where all of the colors and the hues of the purples have to be just right and perfect, or even worse, like Thousand Suns, that require some very fancy painting techniques to get that glossy red over the gold of the armor. The Iron Hands is very workmanlike. They're very utilitarian, I use that word a lot, but they're very easy to wrap your head around. You just prime the whole thing in black, then hit up the rim, the trim, and the silver bits with lead belcher. Job's a good one, simple as. And the way I found adding this artistry to it, the tarnished silver, that's freshly smelted iron, I really think that looks good, especially when you start to add like the dirt the rust and the battle damage. At this point, I'm showing you that I'm taking my test model here and I'm adding the silver bits in Lead Belcher. So that's the knife, that's the vents in the backpack, and there are like grills in the backpack and the backpack fan at the center that are also going to be in silver. And the helmet has some trim too, amazingly, that can be done in silver. Do as much or as little as you want. The silver being placed onto the miniature and looking at that is fine enough. So you don't have to go overboard. If you're looking for an army you can just do in your spare time, or that will not require that much work to look really good, then I love the Iron Hands for that. It's a great beginner army, and it's also a great army to brush up literally on your fundamentals, the basic skills it takes to be a painter, like dry brushing, highlighting, adding weathering effects and damage effects, and all that great stuff. So here I am switching brushes now, and we're moving on to Sotek Green for the eye lenses. I found Sotek Green to be a very beautiful turquoise-ish color. It's dark, it's not too garish and glaring on the eye. So that's what I'm going to be painting all of the eye lenses for my Iron Hands. A very peaceful, calm Sotek Green. Now I'm going to be working on some Balthazar Gold. This is simply just the bolter shells inside the clip of the bolter. And I do have to hit it from the back because I only got it on the front facing bolter shells within the clip. Okay, next, Rhinox hide is going to be the base of all of the pouches, holsters, and anything like that. You might remember that I used these three colors for my other project, my Scouts. So this is very simple and it works great off of black armor. It doesn't detract and take away from it. Imagine if I painted the pouches and the holsters and everything in like dark gray or charcoal. It would completely vanish in the miniature. But by going with dark brown with progressively lighter, creamier colored highlights, you're going to be drawing the eye more to those areas. Not keeping the eye there. Like once your eye looks and recognizes, okay, that's a pouch, that's a holster, that's pretty cool. And you see the outline done in the highlighted colors like Mornfang Brown and then XV88. It's a great feeling as a painter to have because your brain is registering the different components of the model while you're working on them, interpreting them. All right, it looks like I'm working on the shoulder pads. So yeah, I got my, what color is this? I'm using Corvus Black, but I'm also using like a different acrylic color that's just like a arts and crafts tube of black paint that I got at the Walmart or some hobby store or something. Anyway guys, I don't think I'm going to do a similar video like this tomorrow. I just really wanted to show you how easy it is to set up a assembly line batch painting workspace. I'm only using a corner of this little cutting mat that I've got, and I've developed a system in such a way that what I'm working on isn't too difficult. For example, if I was to try to batch paint a bunch of belts and pouches and holsters, it would really slow us down because everybody's got a different setup. The same thing with your gear. I would want to make sure that you are in as quick a turnaround space as possible, so the minute your butt hits the chair, you can start painting. Batch paint like this, have all of your guys just heaped in a pile, and then as you work, you whittle down that pile and you organize your soldiers in neat, orderly ranks. That's the way to do it. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and while I get onto the XV88, the final highlight for the pouches, holsters, and belt, I want to remind you to leave a comment before you go. Don't forget to hit the like button. Do all of that good stuff. Help get me sent further up the algorithm. Latest players.